Hi guys, thanks for coming today anyway. And my name is Pascal Ungerer. I am a visual artist from Cork, and it's my first time here in Donegal. Great to be here in Artlink, Fort Dunree. I was kind of explaining to Martha earlier, it's kind of really similar to where I grew up in Ireland as well, in West Cork, even though it's more or less as far away as you can get on the island from where I'm from. But you really have this kind of sense of being on the kind of periphery here and the edge of the island, and that's something I really like. I always find those kind of places like super interesting, and yeah, it's so really nice to be here and have my work here in my new show, Speculative Artefacts. And so I think it has like a real context as well with the kind of stuff I'm interested in, and being, you know, an old kind of military installation, because I'm always interested in these sort of decommissioned infrastructures as well. So I think there's a nice kind of synergy there as well with my own work and this place. So yeah. So I started out in, I suppose you could call it commercial photography. I studied photography kind of like in 2003 and 4 when I was living in London, and then I moved back to Ireland. I eventually got a job working for kind of a local newspaper, and I used to do, I guess, a lot of kind of PR, press photography and that kind of stuff. And I think after the sort of recession in 2008, work was kind of getting a bit quiet, and I'd been kind of working on a lot of my own kind of photographic projects at the time, and then I decided if I wanted to have a kind of a career in more, I guess you could call it fine art photography, that it would be good to study it, to do a degree in art. So that's when I decided to go back to university. I was in my kind of mid-30s already at that point, and I did a degree in fine art at the Crawford College of Art and Design, and then after that I went straight into doing a master's in Goldsmiths University London as well. Yeah, I suppose photography is still part of my, even though I consider myself a painter now, but photography is definitely still part of what I do as an artist. I spend a lot of time taking photographs or going through photographs I've taken over the past 20 years and using that as a sort of the starting point for a lot of my painting work. And so even in terms of my process, it's still like a really strong element of how I design, you could say, design a painting as well. So yeah. So when I say kind of design a painting, so my process really is that I'll spend quite a lot of time going through photographs in my own sort of archive of images that I've taken over the years. And sometimes I'll go through literally hundreds, sometimes even thousands of photographs before I select something that I think could work as a painting. And it doesn't always work, you know, there's always that, you know, like any painting, you don't know how it's going to come out, I suppose. But so once I've kind of selected the photograph, what I would do then is I would put it into Photoshop, and I'd kind of design a color scheme. I design my composition. Now, I don't always stick to that exactly, but that will kind of give me almost like a kind of a foundation or a starting point for my painting as well. So yeah, that's how I would call it kind of designing the design phase of a painting, when I kind of work on the computer like that before I actually put paint to canvas, in a way, yeah. So sometimes I'll have a kind of like, I'll come up with a kind of a color that I think will work really well because of its context, and other times it's just more of a kind of a visual decision, and because I think it kind of looks really interesting in that context. And I like to use color as a way of kind of maybe making more of an ethereal, kind of otherworldly sense of strangeness within the paintings, because a lot of my paintings are kind of very unusual structures or places, and I guess for me I use color to kind of augment that sense of strangeness in the works and these places as well. I guess it's nice to have this kind of linear progression in the work and the thematic. I'm not very good at doing like one project about a specific subject and doing something completely different. And it's almost like one project kind of evolves into the next one. And I think I'm at that phase now where I've done this project that I developed at the Ill, and it's kind of really graduating and developing into something else. But there's still that sort of interconnection between the two projects as well, you know. And I think having the trees as a kind of a new element or a new sort of motif in the work, and I think that's something I want to kind of develop a bit more, because a lot of my work is, there's a sort of a general thematic that ties these maybe slightly different projects together, and that would be the kind of this idea of otherness within the landscape, or these kind of very peripheral and marginal landscapes and places, but then they could be kind of slightly different as well. Like I have some pieces that are about kind of like old border stations in Eastern Europe, and then there's kind of industrial infrastructure, but they're all part of this kind of landscape on the periphery, you know. And I see these places as a sort of like a kind of an architecture of the periphery as well, in a way. But I suppose there's always that sort of nod to uncertainty and this kind of like almost the precarity of the future and these kind of speculative future landscapes as well. And I think that, you know, nature is kind of indelibly tied into the work I do as an artist, even though it's maybe juxtaposed with the sort of the man-made as well. And there's been kind of quite a strong focus on the man-made within the sort of landscape of what I do. So I made a sort of a kind of conscious decision to bring in more elements of nature within that work as well, and to see how those two things can work together, I think. I kind of grew up with a lot of these kind of 80s, almost dystopian, post-apocalyptic kind of films. So I think that's kind of part of my sort of language as a painter as well, you know, and those were kind of things that influenced me much earlier on as well. And I still have an interest in that kind of genre. So yeah, no, it's been a really great experience coming up, and delighted to show my work here. And thanks everybody for coming and looking at my work and hearing the talk. And yeah, it's been really great. So thanks everyone.